Hello and welcome to episode number 234. We've got a bonus one this week for all of the brokettes out there, and we do want to thank all of the listeners on Twitter who went ahead and threw out this tweet and a variety of tweets to Alterna Comics and asked, what comic book podcast do you listen to? And a good handful of you did go out there and put @ReasonsImBroke. So huge thanks to all of you. And for that, there is this bonus episode. I know a lot of you are comic book readers. You have your own subscription at your local comic book shop. And if you do follow Diamond Solicitations, you've got a handful of comics that are coming your way. And they're coming your way starting in May and moving on forward from June. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
And to any new listeners out there, the way we format the show normally is we cover some news. Today we've got a special guest on the show, and this is Peter Simeti from Alterna Comics.
Hey, nice to be here. Well, I'm glad to talk to you guys, and I hope to get some of the books out to your listeners, and I'm glad to just be on, honestly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter, for reaching out to us as well. You founded Alterna Comics back in 2006, correct? And you're the current president?
Yes, that's correct.
President Peter, we should refer to him as that for the rest of the show.
So, President Peter, you've got worldwide distribution in print and digital formats, also in several different languages, so you can really hit a wide variety of audiences with your indie comics.
Yeah, that's true. We're in print and digital, and we've got single issues coming out. But predominantly, we've been doing graphic novels in print. People have been getting our books in all kinds of ways. It's been great.
So you're both a co-creator and an own publisher, correct?
Yes, yep.
Perfect.
That's correct.
And something really interesting, Alterna creators own the licensing and merchandise rights for their creations. I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of licensing and merchandise, we're not really looking to get rich off of T-shirts and even movies and shows and things like that. Like my own film, The Chair, Alterna doesn't see any cut of that. It's all we ask for at Alterna is to just kind of give a mention, and it's mostly the synergy stuff so people understand that this was based on a comic book and hopefully that it drives sales as well towards wanting to read the books. So in terms of, if any creator gets a deal or anything like that with a toy or a show or a T-shirt, or even if they want to make stuff on their own, Alterna's not looking to take a piece of the pie. So we just want to put out the books and hopefully get them in front of as many people as we can.
So since 2006, Alterna Comics, as we mentioned before, it is an independent publisher of comic books, and it looks like there's a bit of a movement now with this new line of comics that you are coming out with in May. So let's get listeners familiar with exactly what Alterna is looking to publish in the next couple of months.
Sure, sounds good.
So first off with you, President Peter, what was your first experience with comic books?
My first experience, I think, was similar to a lot of people's. It's with superhero books from Marvel and DC. I got started with Spider-Man, and I read that a lot until the X-Men rolled around in the 90s, and I got into the X-Men, and just I loved the art with everything, and then the stories and the characters, and I kind of learned a lot more about them because you can't really afford a whole lot when you're a kid. So
right.
The best thing that came out at the time, I think, and I'd love to see it come around again, was trading cards. It was great to get a hold of a lot of trading cards, and you can learn about characters and see some cool art and not have to exactly read 50 issues of a book to catch up, and you hit all the main points of a character with a lot of those trading cards, and I think at the time it was really awesome for kids especially to learn about the universe of these characters and really get into them without asking mom and dad to spend $100 on comic books. Yeah, that was great at the time, and I'd love to see it come around again to do some kind of affordable trading card thing. Maybe that'll be the next thing Alterna does.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, are we going to see Alterna cards? And hopefully we'll see that in the future. Even today, I work at a comic book shop, people still bring in and talk about the trading cards from back then. They have their old X-Men binder, and I mean, they're all yellowed out and everything, but that's because they've kept them perfectly intact, untouched. People do like those cards, and I think maybe it's a thing from our age, but even kids are still collecting cards, whether it's Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! I think if you throw them in comic books, that'd be another thing that they would keep alongside their collection.
I didn't even know cards was a thing. I'm learning new things today because I didn't even know there were trading cards for comics.
Yeah, I think I got like the first 4 sets of Marvel, and then I got a bunch of the different X-Men and Spider-Man, a couple DC ones. I think I still actually have them. And it's awesome nowadays too, especially with eBay, that all these cards you couldn't really get as a kid, and now you can just kind of go on there and buy the whole set for like $20. So it's kind of cool.
Now with
slightly
more expensive.
It was a great
income.
way to discover characters.
Mm.
Yeah.
So given that you obviously collected during the 80s and the 90s, you mentioned Spider-Man, X-Men. I'm sure that was at the time with McFarlane as well. Jim Lee was up and coming. From here, what inspired you to take on the massive task of starting your own publishing company as opposed to working your way through the existing ones?
It was a really slow process. There was a time where I was really certain that I would just go into comics and draw and write for Marvel or whatever. And then during the mid to late 90s, when they were going through a rough patch and they had filed for bankruptcy, I kind of figured maybe comics are over, and I kind of shifted focus to doing other things and maybe more graphic design kind of stuff. And I stopped drawing for a couple of years, and I was in high school at the time, and I really just was like, wow, I got to rethink what I want to do with my whole life, because I was always set on it.
That's
from
scary.
a kid. I wanted to do comic books. And I got into other things, and I did like music for a while and stuff like that, and graphic design work. But I really figured comics are just kind of done. And it wasn't until I think the X-Men movie came out, the first one, when I was like, you know what, I think comics are going to start to come back again. From that point, I tried to make my own comic, and I kind of tried drawing and doing sequential art, and it's tough. I mean, any sequential artist that does their job really well, and it always seems like there's so many of them out there because there's so many comics, especially if you're in that world. But it's really not. It's not the case at all when you compare the amount of people that read these things, the amount of people that are in the art field, and then who can really do sequential art well. It's a small number of artists, if anything. It's so tough, and I have all the respect in the world for those people, because I tried it, and it's not something that I necessarily want to do. I don't have the patience for it. If anything, I'm known on Twitter at this point for doing like 1 minute, 5 minute sketches, like that kind of a thing. And it's because I just have no patience to spend hours and hours and hours on a piece. I just want to get it done as quick as I can. I don't care if it even sells just for $1. If I can just get it over with as fast as possible and move on to the next thing, I'm happy with it. So with that, I love doing covers and things like that, and I love doing lettering. But in terms of actually doing sequential art, as much as it's an awesome process, I just don't have the patience for it. So after trying that, I had way more fun writing the book and doing the other elements to it. So doing my own book, instead of pitching it to a publisher, I just kind of did what I had done previously, which was just kind of make print-on-demand copies and see how it went. And people liked it, and they bought it. A couple print runs sold out, and that was with the chair. People started approaching me about trying to get submissions for the company, and at the time it felt weird because it was just an alias for my own work. It wasn't really supposed to be a publishing company. It was just something, instead of saying Simeti Publishing or just something else like that, I came up with just a name to make it sound kind of catchy or whatever, and I thought Alterna sounded good because it kind of sounded strong, and it sounded like alternative, and that's what I wanted to offer was an alternative kind of comic. From that, I looked at a lot of people's work, and I was really blown away that there were so many people out there that were getting rejected by everyone else. I thought, you know what, maybe if we work together, we can kind of have strength in numbers, and that'd be great, and we can get out there. And lo and behold, 11 years later, here we are.
Congratulations. And you know what? Looking through a lot of this artwork, because you have preview pages up on your Kickstarter, on alternacomics.com. You said a lot of these artists are getting rejected. That's some really good talent that's getting rejected.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even on every level, as far as the superstars in the industry, they were all rejected a bunch of times. If anything, those tend to be the people who were the most rejected, because it's from years of refining and working hard at it. There's no real story, I think, on any level with anything, of someone that just did it the first time and became a massive success.
Right.
There's lots of bumps in the road and rejections, and it's important to look at those things as things that steer you down the right path as opposed to things that just stand in your way. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to overcome, is that no doesn't mean the end. It just means you kind of, reevaluate and get better and move forward.
So derailing a little bit, you had mentioned the chair a couple of times. Was that kind of the jumping off point with Alterna Comics? Is, if you want to talk a little bit about the chair, because there's more coming from that.
Yeah, I think it might have been. It was definitely the first title that got notice, to the point that it really started making me consider that we could take on more serious work, and a lot of people were really ready for that kind of thing. And just because a creator, because we took a big chance with getting guys that were kind of in a dead zone at the time, because it wasn't like mainstream enough to be in a superhero book, and it wasn't alternative enough to be in what was really an indie comic maybe 10, 15 years ago, which is a lot of slice of life and stuff like that. So we were kind of in a dead zone with creators that didn't really fit in either world. And I'm glad that we didn't go under because of that. And if anything, we managed to find a lot of people that were really interested in those kinds of books, and no one else was really putting them out at the time. So to see that there was a lot of publishers that aren't around anymore since we started, and some of them put a lot of really great work out too. And it's a tough industry, and I'm glad that we're still here. Well,
we are too, absolutely. So I noticed you guys do a lot of single issues. It's not trades. And then you also use newsprint. Was there a particular thought process that went behind both of those choices?
Yeah. For 11 years, we've been doing, I guess, a handful of single issues over 11 years, because we predominantly just did graphic novels and trades. And the thought process behind that, it was a twofold thing. And one of them kind of culminates with the newsprint stuff. It's because I couldn't find a newsprint printer. And I didn't want to put out single issues en masse until we could find a newsprint printer, because it just didn't feel like comic books to me. I didn't think that it was right that we should be pricing them at a premium. And especially with a trade, it felt like odd math of an issue $3 or $4, and yet a trade is like 10, but there's only maybe like 3 issues. And it just didn't really make any sense. It didn't seem like a great deal for the reader. Mm-hmm. So to work with the indie comic creator schedule as well, a trade once a year seemed to be kind of more in line with everything, as opposed to a single issue maybe every 3 months or every 6 months. It just kind of worked better with people's schedules. From that point, we kind of kept building and building with that, and then digital came along, and we were one of the first ones to get involved with putting our comics on Comixology.
Oh wow,
we've been
That's
with them
awesome.
since we were open. I remember at SPX, we got approached by one of the guys that founded Comixology, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're putting this new thing out, and it's kind of cool, and you can follow it along. It's called like guided viewing stuff, and it's digital stuff. So we're starting out, and it was funny. I was like, that sounds really awesome, and there wasn't really smartphones like they are now. A lot of it was still computer, and then I think like there was an iPhone out at the time. But
that's true. One iPhone.
Now. Yeah, it was the iPhone, and that was it. So at this point, everybody's got something like that, and the business obviously has taken off for them, and I think they're the industry leader in terms of digital comics. And if anything, you can view them as probably the largest retailer on the planet of comics, because they're not technically a distributor, but it's like they're kind of walking the fine line of distributor and retailer.
Yeah.
But so we've been through a lot in terms of it's crazy how much the industry has changed since we even started. It makes me feel like I'm much older than I am, but everything has changed so much. And it's odd, I guess, for us to go to newsprint, because people are like, well, comics and it seems like more of a premium thing at this point, and a higher end, literary sort of thing. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, newsprint doesn't change that. If anything, price point on something, to me anyway, price point doesn't always designate the fact that something is an upscale product, because
right. Mm-hmm.
If anything, back in the 90s, VHSs were like $30-$40 sometime. I don't know if anyone
I remember Lion King, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And now you can go get like a Blu-ray for $5. So it doesn't always designate the fact that something's worse just because it's gone down in price or it's affordable. I mean, if anything, even computers. I think my first computer was like $2,000, and my phone is smarter than that. I know that there's a different economics to the whole thing, but the reason we can do them so cheap with these newsprint books is because we managed to find a printer that could do the print runs for 3 times less. So instead of us kind of cashing in on nostalgia and doing even a $2.99 on the book, I figured, you know what, we might as well just make them as affordable as we can get. Still keep profit margins and still do that, but hopefully we can reach more people. And I mean, even at a show when we've got books to clear out and we've got them priced $2-3 on a graphic novel that used to be maybe $8. Mm-hmm. The books fly; they go everywhere. We just sell out at a show. And after a while, when we had single issues and we had enough of them, and we had single issues to clear out, and we did like $1, $2 on an issue, every single person we asked, oh, you know, we got $1 for a comic, you know, would you like it? And every single one of them bought it. So we'd sell through hundreds of these just with that pricing. So that kind of validated, to me at least, you know what, people are not really going to say no to a comic that's priced at that, especially when most comics seem to be priced at $3.99, $4.99 even now, and some are even higher. So hopefully people tend to go for these books based on price, but then also the newsprint factor of it. So that'll be something that we're looking forward to seeing.
That model absolutely works. Mm-hmm. I go to different conventions with my buddy Riggs. He's been on the podcast before, and he's more of a casual reader, but when he does go to these shows, he specifically always says, hey, I want to go to Artist Alley and check out some of the indie creators. I'm like, all right, we go. And anytime there is someone, as you mentioned, offering up a comic for $1 or some kind of buy two get one deal where it's like a thick trade for $5, he always goes for it. And it's because he knows he can get, 10 different comics or different trades for $20. And as opposed to trying to get something from the big two, and maybe you'll find a trade at, $17.99 or so. So that's absolutely the model to go with, and something that, as you mentioned, people are going to bite on that way more often. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, especially because, as indie creators, I don't want to downplay the fact that people don't work their butts off to get these things out. But at the same time, we have to understand that we are competing with more well-known creators and people that the risk isn't, to most people, it's not really there. Like a Spider-Man or a Batman or an X-Men or a Walking Dead, that's viewed as a less risk than, The Chair, where it's like, oh, it looks nice, but I don't know what the hell it's about. I don't know who you are. So if it's priced at the same price, you're going to think, well, I could just kind of buy something I know I already like. But if it's priced at a more affordable price, you're like, oh, well, I could still buy the thing I like, and this is only going to be $1 or $2 extra.
Mm-hmm.
One of the concerns that I saw on Kickstarter, people were asking, and you put on the Kickstarter too, is the question of, can that price point last?
Yeah, it's funny because people are always experts when they don't know everything that they're talking about. but I get the definite gimmick side of it because it's been done. I mean, The Walking Dead, speaking of them again, they just had that 25-cent issue, right. and a couple publishers have had books out for $1, and it's usually a loss leader to get lots of people on board, but then the price goes right back up to $3 or $4. In terms of this printer, this is a printer we've been using that they're family owned and operated. They've been around since the 80s. We're not using a comic book printer, and that was the key to us finding an affordable printer that could print what we needed. They usually print like small town newspaper stuff, circulars, flyers, and that's why they have tons of the newsprint in stock, because that's what they primarily use. And because of that, their pricing is, we can guarantee that it's not going to be going up to 2 or 3 or 4 or anything like that within a year or two. This is going to pretty much stay the line for the foreseeable future. I think the most it'll probably go to maybe $1.99, maybe years down the road. If we're still doing this, maybe we'll be doing $2 or $2.50, but that really all depends on the printers we use. And if anything, at this point, the fact that newsprint is primarily used for things that people just give away. I mean, you see tons of the car magazines and things like that, like Auto Trader and stuff. Those are all on newsprint, and it's because newsprint's so cheap. So because of that, and that's how it's been and how it's going to continue to be, I don't think the price is really going to go any higher anytime soon.
Can I suggest that I don't know if you've seen DC do the hold the line at $2.99 image, where it's Green Lantern putting out that line out in the sand. You guys should do something similar. Just like this parody piece with your characters of Alterna Comics and holding the line at $1.50.
Right. Until we put out the lenticular cover, and then it's a little bit more. And then we'll be like, but look, it's a nice cover. And then everybody that was alive in the 90s could go, where have I heard that before?
So I'm sure with print, there are many more headaches. Like you said, it took a long time to find the printer and work out all the prices and everything. So given the accessibility of digital media, why did you choose to go the route of printing and selling through comic book shops and newsstands, as opposed to being available exclusively online? Like you said earlier, you were one of the first ones in Comixology.
Yeah, a lot of that, I think, is because digital didn't take off for comics, at least the way everybody thought that they would. Everyone once, especially I think when Amazon bought out Comixology, I think a lot of print people thought, oh, well, here comes the beginning of the end, and no comics are going to be ever bought in print again. And that hasn't been the case. If anything, we've actually seen our print numbers increase alongside our digital numbers. And I think that's because people have been discovering the digital stuff, and then they're like, you know what, I really still like the way books look and feel, and it's cool to get them signed and sketched in, and especially in comics, I mean, as opposed to magazines or newspapers or anything like that, there's that collector mentality with it, and there is that whole, I can go get this thing signed, and it's an awesome piece to have, and because the comic industry is so unique with that. I think that's why digital hasn't really replaced comics at all. And if anything, I think print has actually seen a boost from it.
Yeah, you do hear over and over again the phrase of comic shops are the lifeblood of the industry. And as you mentioned, absolutely, when they see a preview online, customers do come in and they say, hey, I read this first couple of pages online. Can you order this book for me? And it's exactly what you said. Collectors like having something in front of them that they can flip through, whether they grew up doing it. And now you're seeing them kind of condition their kids to also pick out a comic from the kids corner or the kids section. And now they have something that they can take with them and read in the car and flip through and destroy if they want. You know, it's all about that tangibility of having it with you. And I think the fact that you have the newsprint on there as well adds another layer of uniqueness to the line of books, because anytime something new comes out that the readers are like, this isn't just a glossy comic like you see normally, this has newsprint, this has a different feel to it. I think that really grabs the attention of anyone that picks it up even from the shelf and it's like, oh, hold on a second, this is different. It'll give them that extra second, that extra hook to actually flip through the comic.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing that we're noticing with music, where vinyl's having a big resurgence. Mm-hmm. It's a whole experience. It's the art of it. It's the way it looks. With newsprint, it's the way it smells. Especially for creators too. When we announced our newsprint line, we got, I think, flooded with about 100 submissions almost overnight to be a part of it. And we usually maybe get 10 a week. So to get that many, that was the fact that it hit something that I didn't realize that it hit on when I put them out, because it was more of a passion project to get a couple of newsprint books out there. And as people really were excited about it, I still didn't get the fact that there was an entire generation of creators that never ever had a book come out the way they had books when they were a kid. Mm-hmm. And I think that really spoke to a lot of creators. And I think it speaks to even comic shop owners. We've had even people who just wanted to advertise in the books because they're newsprint. Ultra Pro, that does a lot of the comic supply stuff and gaming card supply stuff. They wanted to advertise just because they wanted to advertise in a newsprint comic finally again. I mean, that was kind of awesome. So I pretty much used Ultra Pro alongside with a couple other supplies, but as a kid especially, though, I used Ultra Pro all the time, and to see that they were interested in something like that it even spoke to advertisers. I think we're sold out of our first 2 months of advertising, and we're sold out about 80% of July, August, and September. Even with that, with the advertising stuff, the fact that people are excited to just place ads in a book just based on the paper that's inside of it, that's kind of crazy. And I mean, you can't really argue with that. You can't argue with the fact that it's getting people interested. And I think that the price point, some people are like, well, you know what? You can't keep an entire comic shop open with comics that are $1.50. And by all means, I agree with that. I'm not telling comic shops to turn into a Dollar Tree. You can sell whatever the heck you want to sell in your comic shop. If anything, though, now, instead of trying to say, well, here's another $3.99 indie book that might not go anywhere, and now I could have just got like a Marvel or a DC book, you can go, oh, well, you know what? This book costs me like half the price, and it's not that big of a risk. And it's not as big of a risk not only to the retailer, but also to the reader. And if they think the book looks interesting, maybe they'll just try it out just because. And we just don't have that kind of mentality anymore in comics.
So with the new line of comics coming out, do you plan on keeping the issues in print? Should you have a complete sellout of issues 1 of, let's say, for example, Amazing Age? Will there be more printings of that? Will you keep it in print?
If we have immediate sellouts, like if we just go through an entire run pretty much within like the first month, then yeah, we'll do another printing. I'm looking right now and seeing if we could get any kind of a cover variation for a second printings, but that again depends entirely on creative teams. I know some of them are down for it, and then some of them are like, well, maybe we can just kind of put some kind of tweaked color scheme on the cover, and so people know that it's a second printing, and that's fine. And but yeah, we'll definitely be trying to do something like that.
So speaking of your creators, and I know we touched on this a little earlier in the show, have you found specific benefits to the creators retaining the licensing and merchandising to their own creations? Are they more interested in working with your company?
Yeah, I think people always like to know that what they've created is still theirs at the end of the day. Even at Alterna, all we really want is the publishing and distribution rights. It's not necessarily ever an intellectual property thing. If anything, it's kind of a common sense rights retaining type of thing, because you don't want your book out everywhere at every publisher, and it's not attractive to another publisher if you're like, oh, well, my book's already out at, the 2 other publishers. Why should you sell it? That's a case too, I actually find with Comixology, is I get a lot of creators that approach me wanting to get their book on our Comixology lineup, because we do some books that are just digital only, and they'll go, okay, well, I've had this on Comixology for a couple months. Is that a problem? And it honestly, it kind of is a problem, only because of the fact that it's difficult to rebrand. It's difficult to kind of reach out to the fact that, well, why is this being released again? Mm-hmm. It's hard to kind of communicate to an audience, especially the people that kind of jump on board right away. That's your core audience. And for a digital book, that's really tough. For a print book, it's not really that tough, because you could go, well, hey, here's another cover, and it's a different print quality, and, it's a bigger release. But digital is that more even playing field. And with that, there are more obstacles if you've already got your book out there. But yeah, as far as creators keeping their rights to stuff, I think if anything, they've always been excited about that.
We also have a couple of questions here from Twitter that people submitted for the podcast before we move into the solicitations for May and June at Alterna Comics. The first one comes from @TimTKWriter. Again, this is his Twitter handle. And the question was, quote, what are your thoughts on new creators choosing to self-publish their comic versus pitching it to a publisher? End quote.
Well, I think I'd be a complete hypocrite if I was against it, because I'm still self-publishing if I really think about it. I think self-publishing is fantastic, especially if you are truly a new creator. I absolutely encourage it, because it'll show you that you can make a comic. And if you can keep deadlines, and if you can work for yourself and be motivated to do that, that's really important. People say, don't work for exposure and this and that. And I'm always trying to say, no, don't work for exposure, work for experience. Right. Because that's what's going to enable you to go to someone else and say, well, I'm worth X, Y, and Z because I've done A, B, and C. If you don't have that to say, I mean, even getting a retail job when you start out as a kid, it's how many people when they start out getting jobs, they're like, oh, well, I clean up at my parents' house, and I did a newspaper route, and I babysat. I mean, you got to start somewhere with anything, and it's always about more proving it to yourself that you can handle that responsibility before you can tell somebody else that you can handle that responsibility. Because if you fall flat on your face after getting signed by a publisher, that could be really bad. That could actually kill your career, depending who you ended up signing with and how big of a stink they made, and now money you might owe, and you could get in a lot of trouble. So it's always great to self-publish, and in terms of if you find that you don't really ever need a publisher, and you manage to get your own press going, and you get an audience, especially with things like Kickstarter nowadays, you don't really need to do distribution and a publisher if you feel you don't need to, and if you're at a good place and you're comfortable with that. And at the same time, if you do feel you need a publisher, always look at the stuff they publish first and make sure you like the quality of it and the stories and how they treat their creators. Even talk to some of the creators that are at a publisher and see how it's been for them. Because it's really important that you make sure that your stuff is somewhere that the people care about it as well. No one should ever care about the story that you create more than you, but it's important that the publisher does care to get the story out there, because there's always someone willing to take advantage of a desperate creator, and that's the unfortunate side of the business.
I love this powerful life advice we're getting today.
All gold, Peter.
President Peter.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm all about it, and I don't shut the hell up unless someone tells me to. So feel free.
No,
it's great. We're eating it up over here. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. So our next Twitter question comes from man, I can't do this. Why do you give me the hard names?
I always leave you the hard names.
You do. Tijigo?
Sijigo, I think.
Sijigo.
T-S-I-J-I-G-O.
And that's his Twitter handle, who asks, will you guys ever do a trade collection reprints of mini comics?
Oh, yeah. I think I actually responded to his, because I wanted to make sure that he meant miniseries and not like actual mini comics, because we have had people that have done Kickstarter runs with actual mini smaller comics. But I think what he means is the miniseries stuff. So, yeah, we definitely will be doing trades. If anything, Alterna's predominantly done trades, and I can't see why we would exclude the newsprint books from that. We won't be publishing those trades, though, on newsprint. I want to make a clear designation that graphic novels and trades are a premium product with a premium price, and it's something that adults should be able to afford, whether they buy that for a kid or whether they buy it for themselves. It's not something that I think should be on newsprint, because trades are usually for longer shelf life, and you want to own it, and it's a nice piece that, books furnish a home, that kind of phrase.
Exactly.
Those will always be treated as a more long-lasting kind of premium product. But as far as the single issues go, those will be in newsprint. And I definitely don't plan on putting out single issues that are not on newsprint. And the trades will be on a more premium paper.
Awesome. Thank you so much for submitting your questions at CGGo and at TimTK Writer. Let's go through the solicitations on what Brokettes out there can right now order. You can go to your local comic book shop. You can call them up. You can email them. You can tweet at them if they have a Twitter account. They should. And you can ask for these comics to get ordered. Typically, the deadline for these are usually around the 20th of each month before they submit their final orders. So you do still have about a week to submit at least the May solicitations, these first 4 books that we're going to talk about. And then we'll go into the June solicitations, which you'll have a little bit more time to. But if you are interested in these May Alterna comics, you do need to right away, while you're listening, go ahead and shoot an email over to your local comic book shop and ask for these comics. Yeah, of course.
Pull over the side of the road.
So, yeah, go ahead. If you want to start with the first one, Kelli.
The first one is Amazing Age. This is an all-ages book. The solicitation reads, 3 teenagers spend their days creating comics until one day the stories come to life. Stuck in a world of super-powered heroes and villains, they'll have to figure out how to save the day and get back home in one piece.
So I would say, Peter, this is like your closest to an actual superhero comic in the line of Alterna Comics out of the first round of solicitations, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the only superhero books we've published in a while, other than the If anthology that came out. That was a superhero kind of anthology thing. But yeah, this is definitely the superhero book that we've got coming out.
And these are, for the most part, one of 3, correct? Or do some of them have more than 3 issues?
Amazing Age is a 5-issue series, and Adam Rec is a 3-issue, Croak is a 3-issue, and Lilith Dark is a 4.
Perfect. The next one, Adam Rec, you had mentioned, it's also an all-ages comic. This solicitation reads, an interstellar family road trip comes to a screeching halt when Adam's parents are kidnapped by space pirates. Crash landing on a planet filled with monstrous creatures, Adam befriends a scoundrel with a heart of gold, and can they save Adam's parents? The artwork on that looked especially eye-catching, since it uses orange. I don't know, does the whole book work like that, where it's mainly line work and then you've got the highlights of orange on the characters and on the backgrounds?
Yep, it works just like that.
Well, I love space pirates, so I am all for this book.
On our sub, absolutely.
The next book is Croak. This is a mature book. In this pulse-pounding horror thriller, a fun camping trip turns, I can never say this word.
It's Aubrey.
Aubrey, thank you. After 3 friends are forced deep into the woods. Lost, afraid, and alone, their worst nightmares come to life. This is why I don't go camping.
Just saying, right?
I don't go camping. I don't swim in the ocean. No.
Lilith Dark, you especially were interested in the all-ages comic. This one, lured into an old tree by a mysterious kitten, Lilith discovers an entire world of real beasties that have been living right under her nose. With everything on the line, can Lilith save the day before bedtime? I mean, you can throw that in the kids section.
This looked so adorable. The preview I saw was her feeding her dinner to a T-Rex and then saying, okay, I'm ready for ice cream. And then it's a little stuffed animal T-Rex. And it looks so good. So adorable.
Yeah, so we've got 3 all ages books out, and people might be wondering, because I saw, and I never should have done this, but I read the comments in a lot of sections, and I saw people being like, well, why are these so kiddie and everything? It's like, well, that's because it releases the Wednesday before Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, and, genius.
So a lot of these are designated for kids, but these are true all ages books where they don't talk down to kids, and they don't just appeal to kids. There's a lot of adult humor that obviously would go over a kid's head, but the adults would get it. They just kind of are fun books, and that's what we're mostly trying to make. And if anything, for the moms and dads that go out with their kids for Free Comic Book Day, they can snatch up Croak, which is a great book for adults. For May, we've got a lot of nice all-around type of titles for everybody, and then in June, we've got the stuff that's for adults and teenagers, and it's a little bit more action-oriented and horror.
And by the way, listeners, if you want to follow along and check out these comics as we talk about them, if you bring up alternacomics.com, they have several of the preview pages up on there. They have the covers, and you can really take a look at what you're going to be seeing against the newsprint paper. June solicitations are going to come up in the next previews catalog, and this will be the next 4 comics that you'll be able to order. And again, it's never too early. You can let your comic shop know, and they will get it down on their next previews order.
The first one on our list is Mother Russia. This is another mature comic. As a zombie apocalypse breaks out in World War II, a Soviet sniper risks her life to protect an innocent baby boy. Created by New York Times best-selling author and artist Jeff McComsky.
I would put that
McComsky.
I would put that on the cover of every one of those New York Times best-selling every single time.
Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad.
We also talk about the Chair, which you had previously mentioned that it is a mature book. And if readers do want to know about it, Richard Sullivan has spent 10 years on death row for a crime he claims he never committed, but lately inmates are being brutally murdered by the warden and his guards. Will Sullivan escape before it's too late? It is now a motion picture starring the legendary Roddy Piper. So some of your books are already on the side of film.
Yep. Yeah. The Chair, actually, we filmed that about 2 years ago, almost to the day. And with the process of film and how long it takes to get that type of stuff out, we'll actually have the DVD and Blu-ray out this fall.
That's perfect.
Awesome.
Congratulations again.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
I'm sure that's another whole story that we could spend many hours on, too.
But I know a lot of collectors like specifically getting also the comics that are being adapted to film. So there's a perfect one for anyone to subscribe to. Again, that's The Chair. Next is Trespasser, which is aimed at young adults. After a devastating war ruins the air and food supply for most of the world, Hector and his daughter Maria struggle to survive. But when a strange visitor crash lands in the forest, Hector will go to unspeakable lengths to protect his child.
And then the final one we have on the list is Scrimshaw. This is another mature book. With the planet ravaged by war, ruthless corporations have the world's government in their pocket. Faced with impossible odds, Captain Hans Tanaka and the rest of the crew of the Runaway Horse have been branded as pirates, cutthroats, mercs, and the good guys. Finally, pirates are good guys. I told you.
They're not.
They are.
So most of these books look to be bi-month or every other month they release, correct?
Yeah, every other month they'll release. I know bi-monthly is a weird word because some people think that means twice a month, and they're not incorrect either because I looked it up and the definition is twice or every other, which is it's kind of odd.
Good job, English.
I was about to use bi-monthly, but I know now DC's coming out with twice a month books. I'm like, well, they're using that word too, which probably not a good idea.
Usually you hear like twice monthly or something. So, it's bi-monthly for us at least is every other month.
So it works out well because while in May you have Amazing Age #1, next month you'll have, say, Mother Russia #1, and then it goes right back to anyone that subscribed to Amazing Age. They'll have another issue the following month. So every month you'll have something from Alterna Comics, and at the same time it's not such a weird schedule that you see with a lot of these independent publishers where sometimes it'll be like, okay, well, we'll get the next issue out in 4 months when we get it complete. It sounds like you already have your ducks lined up and you have a schedule set for a lot of these issues. And as you mentioned, even timing it up to Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, we hope people really enjoy the fact that these will be out for Free Comic Book Day. And hopefully, I mean, if anything, another thing that shocks me is the past 10, 11 years, whenever we have a book out in previews, maybe get one email or a message from a retailer saying how excited they are for it. And with these newsprint books, I think we've gotten close to 50 to 60 emails.
Wow.
So
newsprint was the way to go.
to see that, to see that reach. I mean, honestly, we've been getting more press for this than when we did the film. So people care about these newsprint books, and I think it's a long time coming. It's almost been 2 decades plus since a newsprint book has been available on a new comic book day wall.
Yeah, you've been featured.
I just hope that people don't.
I was gonna say you the fact that it's on newsprint, it got picked up by Newsarama, Bleeding Cool, and on the headline there, newsprint.
Yeah, it was shocking to me because I didn't think people were going to pay as much attention to it. I thought it was gonna just like fly under the radar a bit. And the reaction's been overwhelming. We must have hit a nerve with people, and not just the price alone, but the fact that it's newsprint. And I think people have been really missing it. And there's a whole generation even of readers that hasn't ever read a newsprint book. And maybe that it won't be for them. And obviously not everything you put out is always going to be for everyone. But to see that it speaks to so many people has been great.
One of the final things we want to touch on here, I know a lot of listeners out there are actually artists themselves, and they have been working on like little side projects or even publishing by themselves online through Tumblr, through DeviantArt. If any artists or writers were interested in joining the Alterna Comics team, what steps do they need to take to contact you?
With Alterna, we don't hire individual creators. It's kind of the way Image is as well. But we do actually have a creators for hire section, so they can submit their information on there. And a lot of people have been hooking up to make projects together and sometimes to submit to Alterna, sometimes to just kind of get out there and self-publish or get to another publisher. But if they have a book that they want to get to us, they can go to alternacomics.com and go to the submissions drop-down, and there's submissions for graphic novels, submissions for digital only, and submissions for newsprint. So they can be part of all three, or they can be a part of just one if they want. And we always take a look at submissions, and we try to answer every single one. But sometimes, especially recently, we've been getting inundated. So If you don't hear from us within 2 weeks, chances are it got rejected. But by all means, if you think that maybe it got lost in the mix, send a friendly email reminder, and we'll just take a look, and hopefully it didn't get lost. And if it did, we'll definitely give it another look.
And also to other comic shops out there, or anyone that really wants to advertise something, where can they go to submit some kind of advertisement to a future issue in Alterna Comics?
That would be on the advertising section of alternacomics.com. It's alternacomics.com/advertising. And we've got ads. I mean, you can get a back page on a back cover on one of these. It's like $200, and we've got newsstand distribution now as well, and the same ads are going to play there too. We're looking at print runs, honestly, because newsstand is such a new kind of thing for indie books and comics in particular. There's not many of them on newsstand. The distributor gave us an estimate ballpark of, well, your print runs can either be about 5,000 or 30,000.
Somewhere in the middle.
So that's great to plan for that. But between the comic shops and newsstand, I mean, you could be looking at a 5,000 to 30,000 margin of people looking at your ad. So that's pretty great. Especially we open ads up to other creators as well, and other indie publishers too. We're not just doing in-house ads, and we're not just doing our own kind of creators. So if you've got an Etsy shop, if you sell online, if you've got your own publishing company, if you're an up-and-coming self-published comic creator, by all means, we'll put your ad in the book as long as we've got a spot.
Perfect. And go ahead and also let readers know where they can find you as far as Twitter, Tumblr. I know you've got a couple of different accounts as well with Alterna Comics, and on Facebook.
Twitter is probably the best spot. That's at Alterna Comics, and I'm at Peter Simeti. And then Facebook, we're on there too. It's facebook.com/Alterna Comics. Tumblr, I think we kind of use every now and then. That's the same thing, Alterna Comics. And then for Instagram as well. But Twitter definitely seems to be the most active spot for us, and I'm looking forward to talking to people on there.
Yeah, and Brokeheads, you will find a link to everywhere you can find Alterna Comics in the show notes as well. If you use anything like Podomatic or Overcast, you will find the active links there. And again, just to remind everyone, the May solicitations, get those in just to be safe before the 20th of March. That's for Amazing Age, Adam Reck, Croak, and Lilith Dark, all number ones. And as you mentioned, on the beautiful Newsprint.
So that does wrap up this very special podcast for you all today. Tune in. You can check out last week and every week moving forward for our regular podcast where we cover comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. But we were so thrilled to have this opportunity to have President Peter on the show to learn all the things about Alterna Comics. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We're happy to have you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Kelli.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Peter.
President Peter.
President Peter. And we will see you guys next week.